Have you ever given a final chance to someone who betrayed you? You probably did, and you probably regretted it. Because the modern world constantly whispers that forgiveness is a virtue, but the unwritten rules of power games say something completely different. History's darkest strategist, Niccolò Machiavelli, shatters this illusion in his masterpiece, The Prince. To him, loyalty is not an innate human emotion. People end their loyalty the exact moment their self-interest ends. True power is not achieved by collecting friends, but by managing your enemies correctly. Machiavelli dives into the most hidden corridors of human psychology in his cold pages. A prince, he writes, who succeeds in making friends of his former enemies will always derive greater benefit from them. This might sound crazy, almost like a suicidal strategy, yet this is the secret formula that built the greatest empire in history. Leaving your mind alone with this paradoxical strategy, let us turn back the wheel of time. I am taking you to an era long before modern psychology and Machiavelli were even born. To the dusty, suffocating, and melancholic borders of India in the year 326 BC. At the head of the undefeated Macedonian army stands one of the greatest visionaries the world has ever seen, Alexander the Great. Across the Hydaspes River, Indian King Porus waits with a massive army of war elephants. This battle will not just be a clash of territories, but a collision of two absolute wills. The air is cold, the riverbed is muddy, and the atmosphere smells heavily of inevitable death. Alexander's forces face a type of monster army they have never witnessed before. As war elephants rip through the Macedonian lines, screams pierce the storm. For the first time, Alexander feels the cold breath of desperation and defeat on his neck. After hours of brutal slaughter, the river waters turn completely crimson. Alexander proves his military genius once again, winning the battle by a razor-thin margin. King Porus's army is utterly destroyed, and his dreams are buried in the mud. But the real story begins only when the weapons fall silent and the victor is decided. Wounded, chained, and having lost absolutely everything, King Porus is brought before Alexander. Despite the blood dripping from his armor, his proud defiance catches Alexander's attention. The young conqueror looks at this unbroken enemy and asks the historic question, "How would you like me to treat you?" Standing on the edge of execution, Porus looks directly into Alexander's eyes without flinching. Only a single phrase escapes his lips, "Like a king." This response creates an immediate shockwave in the frozen room. An ordinary ruler would have taken this arrogant enemy's head in a matter of seconds, but Alexander instinctively knew the cold principle that Machiavelli would put into writing centuries later. At that moment, he completely suppressed his anger and victory euphoria. He did not kill Porus. Instead, he ordered his chains to be removed. Alexander did not just spare Porus's life, he gave him his kingdom back. He even went further and expanded the territories under Porus's rule. This move was the exact manifestation of pure power manipulation that Machiavelli would later analyze with absolute admiration. Porus was now entirely indebted to Alexander's mercy and grandeur. The former enemy transformed into Alexander's most loyal guardian in the Eastern campaign within seconds. Alexander secured his rear completely, leaving an unshakable fortress behind as he marched deeper into India.
Destroying a man physically is easy, but conquering his will is true power. Alexander showed his strength by crushing Porus's army. He seized his soul by granting him mercy. Thanks to this single chess move, the Macedonian Empire pushed its borders to unimaginable heights.
If Alexander had acted like a typical brutal occupier, he would have left behind a population constantly rebelling. His resources and power would have faded away trying to suppress those revolts. Instead, he crushed his enemy, elevated him, and extracted immense loyalty from that very destruction.
Now, let us leave those dusty battlefields and return to the quiet, dark room of your own life. Machiavelli's insight remains fixed like a rock in human psychology, despite the centuries that have passed. Humans, by nature, always live with a desperate urge to prove themselves.
Friends you gain from scratch get used to your presence and kindness after a while. Their loyalty grows lazy because they believe they already deserve your goodness. However, a former enemy must be 10 times more loyal to you just to erase that dangerous label.
The former enemy you forgive will practically fight to pay the price for the new life you granted him. His loyalty feeds on past guilt and a hidden admiration for your strength. That is why a correctly managed enemy is always safer than a fake friend.
Now, ask yourself this question. Are you surrounding yourself only with lazy friends who constantly validate you? Perhaps what you need to grow is the sharp intellect of the enemy who once tried to destroy you. Power is not built by being loved. It is built by managing respect.
Machiavelli was right, and Alexander proved it to the world. The greatest victories are not won against those you kill with a sword, but through those you bind to yourself with your mind. If you want to shift the balance of power in your life, choose wisely whom you make peace with when looking in the mirror.
Because sometimes the ladder that will carry you to the peak is the exact hand that once tried to pull you down. The choice is yours. Will you keep comforting yourself with ordinary friends, or will you turn your enemies into bullets for your own power?